When people come together to serve, and we just heard this from Jennifer, they practice the very skills that democracy requires: listening, collaborating, respecting differences, and working for the common good. President Bush recognized these qualities are essential to our nation's strength, and he believed that they must be celebrated and encouraged in every community. Our first award this evening holds profound meaning for Points of Light. The George H.W. Bush Lifetime of Service Award honors individuals whose lives embody a steadfast commitment to others, people who not only serve, but who inspire generations to follow their example. Gregg Petersmeyer is such a leader. Gregg was a trusted advisor to President Bush, helping lay the foundation for the modern service movement in America by establishing Points of Light and the Daily Point of Light Award. As the founding director of the White House Office of National Service, Gregg has dedicated his career to advancing civic purpose and voluntary action. These are foundational elements of a healthy democracy. His faith in people, in communities, and in the transformative power of service has never wavered. With humility and remarkable conviction, Gregg has spent his life lighting the way for others to serve. So as Points of Light marks its 35th anniversary, it's both fitting and deeply meaningful to honor Gregg Petersmeyer with the George H.W. Bush Lifetime Service Award.
If you look back at the work President Bush started, really the one idea that was at the center was light. Obviously, light is terribly powerful as an idea. It has a universal, symbolic, deeply human connection. It's sort of elemental to life. It evokes a kind of moral orientation. And it's not just light generally, it's light in yourself, in the form of gifts and what you're capable of giving to other people. And it's also the power of discovering light in yourself and in other people. I think I learned the importance of just helping other people by watching my own parents. My father was of that generation that had gone through the Depression as a child and the war. I think they just naturally had lived the value of people helping one another and serving together. I think the single most powerful driver of volunteering is seeing lives change. And it's not just the life of the person who you're trying to help, but it's your own life changed by it. When my first wife passed away, it reoriented some of what I began to realize was very important to me. President Bush had spoken in his inaugural about this need for Americans to rely on one of the great qualities of America, which was people voluntarily helping one another. And he'd called them points of light. So I think people really stepping in to do the work and then be seen as leaders was really at the heart of the idea of telling stories about what became known as points of light. I think that people who really make a difference do that because of the way they have decided to find meaning and purpose in their own lives. And they don't see themselves as heroes. I had a meeting with President Bush 10 days after he was president to talk about how this work might unfold. I said, there's really just one idea that I think needs to be at the heart of what you're about in this work. And he said, what is that? And it was on the last page of a little presentation I was giving him. From now on in America, any definition of a successful life must include serving others. And when we began to name the daily points of light, that was always the last sentence of the press release coming out of the White House. So there were 1,020 press releases over the course of 4 years. And at the end, it said that this point of light is demonstrating what President Bush believes, which is any definition of a successful life must include serving others. I think people who engage in volunteering regularly, it just becomes a habit that is a little bit like other daily habits in life. And I think it becomes a habit because people get real benefit from it. They need and want the friendships that come. They feel that their lives are being more purposeful. It's avoiding boredom, which is a big problem for people. So I think that those are some of the reasons.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in.
Welcome 2025 George H.W. Bush Lifetime of Service Award honoree, Gregg Petersmeyer.
And joining us on stage are a few of the 8,000 Daily Point of Light Award honorees who are here this evening. Come on up.
Thank you all very much. I'm honored and grateful to receive this George H.W. Bush Award, named for a president I served and a man I loved. I want to thank those who have contributed to this evening with their work and financial support, and for those of you here, including my family and several of my oldest and best friends. Thank you, too, for this reunion of White House colleagues who, in their early 20s, 35 years ago, helped President Bush get this started. And they're all sitting over here, all 9 of them. It's the first time they've been together in 30 years. And they're as crazy tonight as they were back then. I also want to thank Neil and Jennifer and the Points of Light board and staff who lead this important organization. As for this award itself, in my mind, it's less about my achievement than my good fortune. My own life has been constantly changed by those around me helping people, starting with my father and extending to others, including some in this room, especially my wife, Julie. This is a confusing and difficult time in America and the world right now. Grievances are turning into dark passions at scale that are dehumanizing and increasingly dangerous. 35 years ago, when Points of Light began, it was a very different time. Now, in this deeply divided time, we have a more important role to play than ever before. It comes through in how it unites us. Think of what you saw and the words the former presidents in their video used to define Points of Light. Can we assume that the people in that video have different political beliefs? For sure. Were they all of different ages, genders, races, ethnic backgrounds, religions, occupations, regions of the country, and levels of wealth and power? Yes, yes, and yes. But here is what was not different about them. First, they all believe in human light, captured by I can help, I can make a difference, I am needed. If it's to be, it's up to me. Second, everyone's humanity and dignity are equal. And third, they are using their freedom to give to another and to receive from another, no exceptions. Over the last 35 years, actually 10,718 very specific Points of Light stories have been told about people in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and across 56 Commonwealth nations. It's a staggering number. The stories are primarily read as stories of individuals confronting identified problems with actions that can often be measured. Meals delivered, tons of trash cleared from a river, reading levels improved, disaster victims sheltered. Each is a measure of objective progress made by individuals and communities, and none of it should be minimized. But today, when we are being pulled apart by the stories in our minds about one another, our objective progress in different areas is no longer enough. We need to see and make more visible otherwise invisible light that exists in every human being. That's because as people see light in one another, it changes what they assume and believe about another person. It changes the story in their mind. This is true the more different two people are to start with. This is the story within those thousands upon thousands of Points of Light stories. The story of light that cannot be seen. It also means that in every individual, there is new light to be discovered. And in discovery, the person is no longer invisible, no longer alone. In this sense, your worth is not proven by what you own or show, but by how you help others feel seen. What bonds us is not our shared opinions or being flattered or being flattened into one or another identity category. Instead, what bonds us is the light we see in one another and the effort it takes with that light to enter and stay in someone else's life. Thomas Merton was right when he wrote, "In the end, it is the reality of personal relationships that saves everything." Although it's true that today we are deeply influenced by technology-enabled devices, this does not change the fact that each individual carries their own gifts in abundance, ways of seeing, caring, and giving that can define their ways of being with and for other people in the world. But make no mistake, in whomever and with whomever those gifts seem most invisible, that's where we need to be. For example, some people believe that it's unfair to ask a 15-year-old living in poor, even unspeakable circumstances to give anything to anybody until society solves his problems. Yes, we have undeniable responsibilities for the well-being of every child in our country. But if that young person is not told that he or she has a gift to give and is not asked to give it, they will come to believe that they have nothing to give, or that if they do, it is unwanted. Again, what we feel, assume, and believe about someone else, including that 15-year-old, is based on the story we tell ourselves about them. To the extent the invisible light in that individual becomes visible, we will tell ourselves a different story, and that can make all the difference. This is a time for many people and institutions where trust is lacking and assumptions about one another divide us. But there's always been more to the American story. Let me close with what Jonathan Meacham, the Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer and historian, said at President Bush's state funeral. Quote, "Abraham Lincoln's Better Angels of Our Nature and George H.W. Bush's 1,000 Points of Light are companion verses in America's national hymn. For Lincoln and Bush both called on us to choose the right over the convenient, to hope rather than to fear, and to heed not our worst impulses, but our best instincts." Thank you again for this wonderful award.